what a strange person, right? But as soon as I saw that, I thought, I wonder if they've heard of forest bathing, and I wonder if that's what they're trying to do right
Maybe,
now.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of the Gentle Finds podcast. I am so thrilled to be speaking with Qing Li today, the author of Forest Bathing. Dr. Qing Li is associate professor at the Nippon Medical School in Tokyo. He is one of the world's leading experts on forest bathing. Dr. Li is vice president and the secretary general of the International Society of Nature and Forest Medicine and the president of the Society of Forest Medicine in Japan. He is also one of the directors of the Forest Therapy Society in Japan. Wow.
It's okay. Thank you.
And welcome.
Thank you for your invitation.
Yes, this book is so beautiful. It took me right into the forest. I want everyone to see how beautiful it is. There's pictures of forests throughout the whole thing, and it's as if you're walking through the forest as you read the book.
Yeah, the photos, the picture are very beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what is forest bathing?
Yeah. In fact, researchers in Japan have tried to find a new method to reduce stress by visiting forests and have proposed a new concept called Qing Li or forest bathing.
Okay.
Qing in Japanese means forest, and yoku means bus. So Qing Li means bathing the forest atmosphere or taking the forest through senses. But it's not exercise, hiking or jogging, but it's slow walk. It's simply being in nature, connecting with it through our sense of the sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. In fact, Qing Li is like a bridge. By opening our senses, it bridges the gap between us and the natural world. So people can enjoy Qing Li or forest bathing through 5 senses. Sense of the sight, you see the green color or yellow color, we call them forest landscape. And sense of the smell, special good smell from the forest. Sometimes called the phytoncide, essential oil.
Phytoncides.
Phytoncide, yeah, phytoncide. Yeah, sense of the hearing. So you see the bird song, and the sense of the touch. You touch a tree and put your whole body in the forest atmosphere. Also the sense of touch. The last one is the sense of taste. So you eat food from forest. You also can drink water from the forest. You also can taste the fresh air.
And we have a good feeling when we're in a forest. And what you've done is you've found a way to study why we feel so good and what the secret power of trees is, right?
Yes.
I love you say that some people study forests, some people study medicine, and you study forest medicine.
Yeah.
So what got you started on this path? What was it about trees that made you think there must be something more to this?
Yeah, it's a long story. Do you have time?
Yes, I have all the time for you. Yes.
Okay, so I just I'll tell you about my story. I was born in a small village in China. I'm Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah, but I came to Japan now.
I see.
Yeah. So there are green poplar forest and a beautiful apricot forest in my village with flower pinking from the March to April. And I love nature and forest from my childhood. In 1988, about 30 years ago, I came to Japan and studied at the Kagoshima University in the South Japan. At that time, in fact, I visited very beautiful forest with my friends in Yakushima. Maybe you read it from my book, Yakushima. Yeah, this very small white island with the mystery and growing green forest from the end of the April to the beginning of the May. We call the Gold Week in Japan. Golden Week, just 1 week from we have 1 week vacation. In fact, the quiet atmosphere, beautiful scenery, mild climate, special good smell, and fresh clean air in the forest. And the big Japanese cedar trees we call the jomusugi. It's in my book, jomusugi, yeah. Made me very happy and relaxed. Thanks for all its bounty and beauty. So I became convinced that forest bathing was absolutely essential to home house. That fascinating imperial visit was to have an important effect on my whole direction of my life and my future research for bathing. My research major, environmental medicine. So I got my PhD degree from Kagoshima University in 1992, and then moved to Tokyo, to Nippon Medical School in Tokyo. In fact, I have studied the effect of environmental chemicals like pesticides, air pollution, and stress, and lifestyle or immune function and home health since 1988 in Kagoshima University and Nippon Medical School, is both university. So I'm interested in the effect of all environmental factors on home health. I'm also interested in the effect of forest environment on home health. So forest environment is also one kind of environment. So I also studied at Stanford University from 2001 to 2002 on the topic of anti-cancer protein. So in fact, this is very important background because I learned anti-cancer protein granulation, and I established the method to measure the granulation in human natural killer cells, immune cell. So this is the second background. So because of my background, so when the forest agency of Japan organized a project team in 2004 for the forest bathing research, so I was invited as a main member of the project team. I want to know why we feel so much better when we are in forest. What is the secret power of trees that makes us so healthier and happier? And why is it that we feel less stressed and have more energy just to be walking the forest? So some people study forest, some people study medicine. I study forest medicine to find out all the way in which walking the forest can improve our well-being. I had my hypothesis before the study of forest bathing. It's well known that the immune system, including natural killer, we call it NK cell, play an important role in defense against bacterial virus like COVID-19 virus and tumors. It's also well known that stress inhibits immune function. As a common sense, forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku may reduce stress, but there are no data. That's a common sense.
Right.
Before my research. Therefore, I speculate that forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku may have beneficial effects on immune function by reducing stress. So I have conducted many studies to investigate the effect of forest environment, Shinrin-yoku, on human health. In fact, I have published many articles in the scientific journal. And now we have established a new science called the forest medicine. And I have published a new book, Forest Medicine, by American publisher in 2012, about 8 years ago. In addition, as you know, in 2018, I published another book, Shinrin-yoku. And notice this one, another one. In UK, this one in America, and this is forest bathing. Shinrin-yoku in UK, and forest bathing in America. And this book, in fact, ranked in bestseller list in the US. So this is a very good book. I think
very good.
The publisher told me it's the first time that a scientific book ranked in a bestseller list. Because so far no scientific book, only social book. Social.
Well, you sort of hid the science within it.
Science book, yes, first time. In fact, this book have translated into 25 languages. I just give you the name: the French, Spanish, Dutch, German, Italian, Russia, Portuguese, Hungary, Czech, Slovakia, Polish, Bulgaria, Finnish, Chinese complex. This is Chinese complex. Chinese, and Swedish, Estonia, Vietnamese, Romania, and simplified Chinese, Korea, Slovenia, Estonia, and Turkey are Japanese. So this is very, very good. Yeah, thank you. So this is my background of why did I start the research of forest bathing?
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Yes, and it's interesting that you studied also the negative effects of environment on our health. One of the things that you describe in the book is how divorced we are from nature in our urban landscapes and the effect it is having on our mental and physical health. And you mentioned that the World Health Organization calls stress the health epidemic of the 21st century. And finding ways to manage stress is the challenge of the future. So how can trees help us with stress? As you say, we feel it naturally, but you've actually found the data that that it actually does reduce stress and have an effect on our physical health, right?
Yeah, yes, it's a very good question. In fact, stress is a key word to understand your question. Also can help us to understand the effect of forest bathing. In fact, stress, you know, cortisol is a stress hormone. And in fact, there are three stress hormones in our body. Cortisol is a stress hormone from both mental and physical stress. Another was adrenaline. We call adrenaline is a mental stress hormone. And noradrenaline is another stress hormone we call the physical stress hormone. So in fact, because stress can induce stress hormone release. So stress is a very good keyword to understand everything about forest bathing. Why I say this? Because stress can induce many diseases, such as cancers, hypertension, depression, cardiovascular diseases, stroke, obesity, gastric ulcer, alcoholism, panic disorder, eating disorder, you name it. So almost every lot of diseases. On the other hand, forest bathing can reduce stress. I'll give you some data. In fact, the forest bathing can reduce the mental stress hormone, adrenaline. But urban city trip doesn't have this effect.
Not at all.
So yeah,
opposite. Right.
Forest bathing also can reduce another stress hormone, physical stress hormone. We call the noradrenaline. And last, the forest bathing also can reduce another stress hormone we call the cortisol, but the female stress hormone in male, both in male and female. So Qing Li can reduce all stress hormone level in human body. So forest bathing is very good for our health.
Yeah. And as I read your book, it seemed no coincidence that this research originated in Japan. You describe Japan as a forest civilization and say that it's no surprise that Shinrin-yoku developed there. From floral designing to the design of homes and park elements, there's a continual connection to nature. Can you tell me a little bit about Japan's relationship with nature?
Yes, it's a long story.
Another one.
Another long story. In fact, yes, it's no surprise that Qing Li developed in Japan. The Japanese are forest civilization. Their culture, philosophy, and religion, even religion, are carved out of the forest that bracket the country. Not to mention all manner of everyday things, from the houses and the shrine, to walking sticks and the spoon. 2/3 of the country is covered in forest.
Wow.
It may be it may be one of the most densely populated country in the world, but it's also one of the greenest with a huge diversity of trees. If you fly over Japan, you will be amazing to see how green it is. 3,000 miles of forest from the subarctic Hokkaido in the north to subtropical Okinawa in the south, with the Japanese Alps in the middle, a spine forested mountain known as the roof of the island. So in fact, the Japanese like the nature, like the forest from the old time. It's not now, from the old time. So they believe that the forest can reduce stress and worry. Therefore, they proposed the concept of the forest bathing in 1982 for reducing stress.
I just have a question. So they proposed the idea of forest bathing just because they felt it felt good without the data at that point?
Yeah. Just
Okay.
common sense.
Okay.
In 1982, they just based on the common sense of walking the beautiful forest in Japan will maybe reduce stress. So it's just the common sense, no data.
Okay.
Okay. So both of the Japanese official religions, we call Shinto and Buddhism, believe that the forest is the realm of the divine. So maybe you see the anime film Princess Mononoke in Japanese, very famous anime film. So this film tells us an epic struggle between mankind and nature. So this film is famous in Japan, even in world. So this is about the nature and the forest, the relationship between nature, forest, and the Japanese culture.
Yeah, and you have a quote about that I'll just read to give people a sense of it. You say, both of Japan's official religions, Shinto and Buddhism, believe that the forest is the realm of the divine. For Zen Buddhists, scripture is written in the landscape. The natural world itself is the whole book of God. In Shinto, the spirits are not separate from nature, they are in it. They are in the trees, in the rocks, in the breeze, the stream, the waterfall. These spirits are called kami. There are millions and millions of kami. They can be everywhere in nature, and the places where gods live can become the places of worship themselves. It is not unusual in Japan to find people worshiping in the forest.
Good. Yeah, very good. Yeah, this is true. This is true.
Yeah. And I have a daughter who's almost 3 years old, and
really?
she would believe it in a second if I told her the trees were telling her something.
Oh, it's
So
good.
yeah, I think those spirits are there. Yeah.
Okay, you can tell her. Yeah.
And you also talk about, in the language of onomatopoeia, when it comes to nature terms. Could we do a little exercise together?
I say Japanese.
You say the
English.
word and I'll say what it means, okay? Okay. Yes.
Shito.
The sound of light rain.
The second one, za.
The sound of heavy rain.
The third one, kasa.
The light sound of leaves rustling underfoot.
Okay. The fourth one, gasa.
The heavy rustling of branches swaying in the wind.
Yeah. The next one, hue.
The sound of the wind blowing.
Yeah. The next one, goro.
The rumble of thunder.
The last one, saku.
The crunching sound of snow underfoot.
Oh, very good. Good combination.
Yeah. And in Japan, you have forests officially set up with medical staff to help manage stress and look after people's health, right?
Yeah. In fact, in Japan, we have the birthplace of forest bathing in Japan. The birthplace of forest bathing in Japan, which is called the Agasawa National Recreation Forest, or Agasawa Shizen Curing. This forest, we officers set up with medical staff to help the people manage stress and look after their health. So only one place. Another place, we have the not medical doctor, but we have the forest therapist.
Okay.
Forest therapist to help people to manage stress and guide people to enjoy the forest bathing.
And so you come to the forest and you meet them before you start your walk.
True. So before that, you can make a reservation to meet a forest therapist to guide you in the forest and do the forest bathing.
And they walk with you?
Yeah.
And you see that people living in cities are dealing with constantly elevated levels of cortisol, and that just a few minutes of being out and about in a city can bring on mental fatigue. What is cortisol? Why is it bad for our bodies? And why does it elevate, whereas a forest actually seems to recharge us, and forest bathing counteracts these levels of cortisol?
Yeah, cortisol is not bad one. The bad one is stress. Yeah, because cortisol is a stress hormone released by the stress stimulation. So I have said before that stress can induce many diseases such as hypertension, depression, and heart disease. And stress also can induce many negative feelings or emotions, such as anxiety, depression, fatigue, confusion, and anger. So stress is a key word. So stress can induce the release of the stress hormone. As I said before, another stress, for example, adrenaline and noradrenaline are also stress hormones. Adrenaline is a mental stress hormone, and the noradrenaline is a physical stress hormone. And both mental and physical stress may induce cortisol release. So the point is not the stress hormone, but it's the stress, because stress can induce the stress hormone, and the stress hormone will produce many negative effects. But on the other hand, forest bathing can reduce stress hormone level, so improve our health. So when people live in the city, many stress stimulation will come from the environment and any place in the city. But when you go to forest for taking forest bathing, because the environment is different between the city and forest, the forest environment can reduce stress and reduce stress hormone, so can improve your health and also improve your happiness and well-being.
And you talk about forests having the same effect as medicine even sometimes. And you mention a study that was done looking at the density of trees in London and the number of prescriptions used for antidepressants. And it found that residents on streets with the most trees took out fewer prescriptions than those who lived in areas with few or no trees. I just thought that was really amazing and proof of everything that you're telling us. Are there any other examples about trees being medicine that you think you want to mention?
Okay, so that example is from the other researchers in London. But I will give you my data.
Okay.
For another example, in fact, in my experiment, I found that forest bathing can reduce blood pressure and have preventive effect on hypertension. I think maybe you know, people with the hypertension will show higher level of the blood pressure. For example, if the level of blood pressure over 140, these people will be diagnosed as hypertension. In my research, I found that forest bathing can reduce the blood pressure about 7 to 8 mmHg. mmHg is the unit of the blood pressure.
Okay.
7 to 8. And the city, we compare the walking in the city environment and the forest environment, and find the big difference. So forest bathing can reduce blood pressure, but city walking doesn't have this effect. The power of the forest bathing for reducing the blood pressure is very similar to the anti-hypertension drug and medicine. So it's a very good one, because if you take a medicine, there will be a side effect. So you also need to pay the money for the medicine.
And then side effects are usually not
good. But if you just visit the forest, there are no side effect and no cost, just free, because you just visit the forest and take a walk. It's free, no side effect. Also, you can get other beneficial effects, not only the blood pressure. You also can improve your immune function, improve your sleep quality, and reduce your negative feeling, and
prevent cancer, right?
Prevent cancer. This is why the forest bathing is so popular in the world.
What we do indoors, on the other hand, is we spend our time looking at screens. You and I are examples right now.
Like that.
And we don't realize our senses are completely dulled. And this book, I think that it was so successful because it makes us feel alive just by looking at the pictures. As we're reading about what the forest's benefits are, we're feeling more alive just looking at the photos, because it brings us directly into the forest. And I wanted to be in the forest when I read the words, and I felt the disconnection, actually. So you speak about the sixth sense being the happiness we feel when all of the other senses come together, awakened and immersed in the natural world. Is this what we strive for when we go forest bathing, is to awaken a sixth sense in ourselves?
Yes. So far, people usually think we have just the five senses because it's a physical
Right.
aspect. But some people think there are maybe six senses. The sixth sense usually people call the feeling of the happiness. When you enjoy forest bathing, you feel very relaxing. You cannot describe this feeling with the word. So usually we call this feeling, this feeling is the sixth sense. It's the feeling of the happiness. This is the sixth sense. But it's the total sense of the other five senses.
Yeah. So our body feels in general more alive, more awake.
Yeah.
And so let's just talk a little bit about the different senses and what's happening to us going through a forest. The first is a sense of hearing the sound that's in a forest. And you mention a study done at Brighton University investigating the connection between brain, body, and background noise. When people listened to artificial sounds, their attention was focused inwards, leading to worry and brooding, whereas nature sounds decreased the functioning of the body's sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, and increased the rest and recover parasympathetic system.
Yeah, it's true. In fact, I don't have the data about noise on the effect of the home house, but many research have proved that noise may increase the functioning of the body's sympathetic nerves. We also call the fight or flight, and induce many diseases such as hypertension, sleeping disorder. Maybe you can imagine that noise will disturb your sleep, and also can induce the depression, anxiety, and also can lose your hearing. So noise has lots of bad effects on home health. But when you visit the forest, so you can escape from the city noise environment, and you will very quiet nature, only nature sound, no artificial sound, not artificial noise. So you enjoy the sound of the forest, and this sound of forest nature sound can improve your parasympathetic nerves and reduce activity of the sympathetic nerves. Sympathetic we also call the flight or fight, and also the forest bathing can reduce the stress hormone, lots of things.
I had just recently someone that I know was saying that they had moved, and I don't know where they originally were living, but they're living in California now. And they were saying that they didn't like the construction of their home because they couldn't hear the rain outside. It made me think of your book and this quote that is in your book. It says, nature is not separate from mankind in Japanese culture. It is part of us. And the need to keep the two in harmony can be seen in every aspect of life, from the design of gardens that incorporate the natural landscape to the design of houses that blur inside and outside by means of translucent paper screens. In traditional Japanese houses, you can close the door without shutting out the sound of the birds singing or the rustle of the breeze.
It's true. It's really this Japanese style house.
Yeah, it's interesting that that is a part of us, and we've blocked it out with modern construction a lot of the time, that we've ignored the positive effects of the sounds. Then you speak about just the color green and what that does for our eyes. What is it about the color green?
Green color is one kind of nature color. So in nature, not only green, but also yellow color. Also sometimes blue color. So because nature is many colors, but the main color is green color. From the medical aspect, green is very good for our eyes. So this has been proved by the many researchers. So we usually use the nature is green. Green is a good color. We call the site of the nature as forest is we call the forest landscape. So forest landscape can give you positive effect on home house.
And you have a lot to say about our sense of smell in the forest.
Yeah.
Tell me about smelling the forest.
Yeah. The smell is a key sense for the forest bathing, for the effect of forest bathing. We use another word for the smell, phytoncide. So phytoncide is the natural oil, we also call it essential oil, which is the plants and are part of the tree's defense system. Trees release phytoncide to protect them from the bacteria, insects, and fungi. In fact, phytin is landing for, we call it, the means plant. And the side, we call it, sometimes use the pesticide. Side means the, to kill. So it means that, so plant will kill something. So phytoncide are also part of the communication pathway between trees. So the way trees talk to each other. So in fact, the tree can take communication each other by phytoncide.
Interesting.
So interesting, yeah, very interesting. In fact, the concentration of phytoncide in the air depending on the temperature and other changes that take place throughout the years. The warmer it is, the more phytoncide there are in the air. So the concentration of phytoncide is at its highest at about a temperature about 30 degrees Celsius. So phytoncide vary from tree species to tree species and have very specific different scent. In fact, the conifer forest, such as Japanese cypress, Japanese cedar, and pine tree, usually in Europe, America, maybe you can imagine pine tree, will produce produce more phytoncide. From research, we usually think as the effect of forest bathing is the total effect of the five senses. But I think the phytoncide, the sense of the smell, will contribute to the effect of forest bathing. So mainly due to the essential oil, the sense of smell. I conducted the following two experiments to explore the effect of phytoncide on human health. In the first experiment, I incubated the human natural killer cells with the phytoncide for 5 to 7 days. That's the test tube. I think you can imagine. I just put the natural killer cell as the phytoncide at a very lower concentration, and I incubated at the 37 degrees, like the temperature human body. And after the 7-day incubation, for the essential oil with the natural killer cells. For example, I incubated the NK cell with the Campsipsia leaf oil, hinoki leaf oil, and Campsipsia stem oil, and some hiba stem oil, also some alpha-pinene, 1 and 8 cinnamon and D-limonene. After 1 week incubation, I found that the phytoncide can increase the hormone NK activity, natural killer cell activity, also can increase the anti-cancer proteins. So there are 3 kinds of anti-cancer proteins: granzyme, perforin, granulysin. So they are anti-cancer proteins and containing in the natural killer cell. So the phytoncide can increase the NK activity and can increase the anti-cancer protein. So this is the first experiment in the test tube. The next step, next thing is to do was to test the effect of phytoncide on immune function in people. So this time I took 12 healthy middle-aged men to stay at a hotel in Tokyo for 3 nights. 3 nights.
3 nights, okay.
Yeah, 3 nights. For stay at hotel 3 nights. And I diffusing hinoki, Japanese cypress, hinoki essential oil into their room during the sleep, during the stay in the hotel. I use the humidifier.
Okay. And so how many different rooms?
12 rooms, 3 nights, yeah. So that experiment was conducted in 2008.
Okay.
In fact, this is my 40th forest bathing study. After this experiment, I published the data in a very famous journal in 2009. So as a result, so forest exposure is in the you stay in the home with the forest bathing with the phytoncide can significantly increase the hormone natural killer activity, and which was mediated by the increase the number of NK cells. Number of NK cells increased. Also, the anti-cancer protein increased. The second result is forest bathing, not forest, the phytoncide exposure also significantly reduced the stress hormone level, such as adrenaline and noradrenaline. Also can reduce the negative feeling like anxiety, depression, anger, fatigue, and increase the positive feeling. So from the two experiments, we can conclude that fungicide have a very big effect for the forest bathing.
And for people out there watching this or listening to this who don't have a forest nearby with those particular types of trees, what kind of essential oils do you recommend getting? Because they can live in a city and get a diffuser, right?
Okay, so in fact, in Japan, the hinoki, Japanese cypress, is the best tree for bathing. For my recommendation, I suggest you use the Japanese cypress tree essential oil.
Okay.
Maybe you also can use the blend of the essential oil. For example, cypress essential oil.
Okay.
Japanese cedar, also some pine trees.
A mix.
Mix. This is a aroma humidifier.
Okay.
Can you see? So this one. So this is a dish for the essential oil.
Okay.
First, we put some water.
Okay.
In the dish. Then we just put 6 drops oil, small amount. So then you put the steam that will produce the aroma.
Thank you.
In city, maybe you cannot enjoy the forest bathing, but you can enjoy the sense of the smell of the forest bathing by use the essential oil.
Yeah, it has a powerful effect, right?
Yeah. At your home, at your office. Another sense, if you live in a big city, maybe you can visit a city park.
That helps as well, yeah.
I also investigate the effect of forest bathing in the city park. And I also find the positive effect of forest bathing.
That's good. You also talk about physical contact, not just walking through without touching. So how do we get into contact with the forest?
Yeah, usually in Japan, we just use 2 methods. One is put your whole body in the forest atmosphere. So this is one kind of sense of touch. Another is you just you touch a tree with your hands. In Japan, we don't hug for
no tree huggers.
No tree hugger. Just touch it. Okay. This was touched by your hand. Also, you can take a barefoot walk.
Okay.
For the barefoot walk is touched by your foot. 3 kind of touching. Touched by your hands, your barefoot. Also, put your whole body in the forest atmosphere. So it's a sense of touching.
I could hug a tree if I wanted to.
You can, if you like, you can, yeah.
Oh, and taste. You, at your national parks, the restaurants offer food grown locally.
Yeah.
So they're actually serving food from the forests?
Yeah.
Is that it?
We call the forest therapy lunchbox.
Therapy lunchbox.
In Japan, we call the bendo.
Wow.
Lunchbox. When we take people to the forest and for bathing, usually the restaurant near the forest will provide the lunchbox for the forest bathing. So those foods are from the forest, near the forest, like some vegetable from the forest.
A quote from your book says, "When you eat wild mountain food, you are taking in the energy of the earth."
It's true, yes. Yeah, because you can take the energy from the earth. You also take the microbe from the soil.
I'm realizing how disconnected I am when I read this book, because if I was in a forest, I wouldn't know what to eat.
Yeah, it's very difficult to understand.
Yeah.
But please be careful. Be careful.
Yes.
Yeah. When foraging for the wild food, there are plenty of foraging plants. So, but never eat anything in the wild that you are not 100% certain is safe to eat.
Yes.
It's very important.
There are some bad stories about people. Often should we be forest bathing to maintain good health?
Yeah. In fact, for my data, if you want to boost your immune function, it's better to take 2 nights, 3 day forest bathing.
Mm.
Because 2 nights, 3 day forest bathing can increase the immune function, can boost your immune function. And this effect can last for 30 days. So 2 nights, 3 days for the 30 days.
Mm.
But if you don't have time to stay at the forest for the long time, maybe you can take a day trip to the forest basin. 1 day for the 6 hours. It also can increase the immune function. And this effect can last 1 week.
Okay.
So 1 day, 1 week. And if you even don't have the time for 1 day, you can take forest bathing for 2 hours. In fact, 2 hours cannot boost your immune function, but can reduce your stress hormone, can reduce your negative feelings, such as anxiety, depression, anger, fatigue, confusion, and increase your positive feeling like vigor. So in fact, recently, I found that just 20 minutes forest bathing in city in Green Park also can reduce the negative feeling, negative emotions.
Yeah.
And increase your positive feeling.
And you do touch on the subject of children and the childhood that they have in relation to nature. And you talk about the importance of natural silence and that it's been called one of the most endangered resources on the planet, and that excessive noise retards the development of children. And you mentioned forest kindergartens as a new development. I know there are a few in France and USA. In his book, Last Child in the Woods, you mentioned this. Richard Louv describes what he calls nature deficit disorder.
Yeah, it's true. It's very important for the children. In fact, noise from the city environment, noise may reduce the learning ability of the children. In the other hand, the nature of the forest may improve the learning ability of children. So not my data, but some researchers have reported that noise may reduce the learning ability of children. And nature at the forest, nature environment and forest bathing may improve the learning ability of children. So it's very important. In fact, when the children with ADHD are exposed to nature or forest, their symptoms disappeared.
Wow.
Well, amazing, disappeared. So nature is good for their mental and the physical development. They are less likely to become ill or stressed if they spend time outside. In fact, I live in the nature, live in a very small village in my childhood.
You do?
So yeah.
Oh,
so
in your childhood.
In childhood. Childhood. So because I live in the nature and the forest in my childhood, so I'm very have good health status now. So it's very important. So if they spend time in the outside, and they are happier, and report they play outside give them more pleasure than playing on the electric devices like some game, computer game. So
Definitely.
Of course, So of course, our children need to know about the nature world, but they also need to get outside. Not only know, but also practice with nature, play with nature. It's very fun. Just for the joy of the nature, they need to get their feet a little muddy and
jump in puddles.
And just play in the nature, play in the outside, just for fun. In fact, the most important is that if children playing out the doors, they will grow up to look after it.
How true,
A growing body of evidence shows that being nature when we are young creates a sense of the connection with nature world that lasts as we grow up. So children who have fun with nature will become adults who care for and protect it and understand its importance. So
they learn to value it.
So if we let our children play outside now, they will become the green architecture of the future, the green city planners and the tea mappers, the gardeners, even the nature therapist or forest therapist, and for
Yes.
the medicine doctor like me.
Yeah.
Because yeah, so the nature and the outside is very important for our children. So you said you have a 3-year-old
Yes, yeah.
so
And
please let her, girl, a
girl, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
please let her go outside and
Yes.
play outside.
Luckily, we live right across from a park in
Yeah,
Paris.
party. Okay.
Yeah. And so we spend a lot of time there, but it's not a forest. Yeah, definitely. I see a difference with her when we get outside and we can spend more time in nature. Absolutely. And I think it's amazing what you said about ADHD in children. It's again the same effect as medicine, that the symptoms went away. And how great for parents to know that, who are concerned about any issues with the medicine and an alternative to screen time, because I know we all are, especially during this pandemic, doing more screen time than we would like. So I wonder about children right now, actually. I'll finish with a little quote here. When we are in harmony with the natural world, we can begin to heal. Our nervous system can reset itself. Our bodies and minds can go back to how they ought to be, no longer out of kilter with nature, but once again in tune with it. We are refreshed and restored. We may not travel very far on our forest walk, but in connecting us with nature, Shinrin Yoku takes us all the way home to our true selves.
It's right. This is true. This is a real feeling of the forest bathing.
Yeah, I do feel that. Yeah, definitely.
So if you visit the forest, maybe you will have this feeling.
Yes. You know, I have to tell you, as soon as I read this book, I went to the park across the street regularly, and I had a totally new relationship with the trees. I was looking up for the first time, whereas before I would just walk straight through the park, you know. And I was looking up and I felt a lot more gratitude for the trees. I felt a connection, a true connection with them after reading your book, understanding that they are actually providing me with something it's invisible, but that there is sort of this symbiotic relationship between us. My health depends on them. One day I saw in the park someone who was walking and doing this. It looked like they were swimming breaststroke through the park. And I know that before I read this book, I would have thought, what a strange person, right? But as soon as I saw that, I thought, I wonder if they've heard of forest bathing, and I wonder if that's what they're trying to do right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, COVID-19. Yes.
Yeah. Since the first outbreak of the new virus at the end of the December of 2019, about one year ago, more 100 million people have been infected in 196 countries so far.
Wow.
The death toll into the over 2 million. Yeah, it's a big. I will talk about the immune function for Beijing and COVID-19.
Please.
Older people with impaired immune function are easy to develop COVID-19. I think you know many older people died.
High risk, right?
And also become more severe, and the mortality rate is also higher as young people. Another second is patients with underlying diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases, as respiratory diseases are also easy to get serious and have a higher mortality rate because of the reduced immune function in these patients. Therefore, immune function is very important to prevent COVID-19. Fourth, Beijing Qing Li Yoku boosts immune function. So therefore, Qing Li Yoku may have preventive effect on COVID-19 by boosting your immune function. I'll give you another relationship between the mental stress and the COVID-19 and the fourth Beijing. Mental stress and various mental disorders due to the lockdown and isolation. Qing Li Yoku reduced the symptoms of anxiety, depression, anger, fatigue, and confusion. Reduce the stress and stress hormone, and increase the vigor, the positive feeling. So Xing Li Yoku may have preventive effect of COVID-19 induced mental stress and mental disorder. So I think forest bathing may have some power, may have some effect for preventing COVID-19. So that's the take-home message for the audience. So let's go to forest bathing to overcome the COVID-19.
Yes.
Is it okay?
Yes, great.
Yeah. Please read my book.
Yes, everyone go get this book.
Yeah,
It's
everyone,
wonderful.
Yeah, read my book to overcome the COVID-19.
Yes, it gives you a sense of peace and well-being just opening this book, and you will want to develop a relationship with nature.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, it's okay. Just enjoy forest breathing to overcome the COVID-19.
Okay.
Okay.